So I'm having trouble teleporting in my scene, and if you're having the same issue, it's more likely than not you have a lot of colliders that are interfering with your nav mesh, right? I can hit P and see that my nav mesh looks okay, but I've got these random spots where I can't seem to navigate. And I also can't really navigate um, or teleport into these areas. It kind of pushes me out of my original player start location, and I can't teleport back into this space. And if you run into that problem, more likely than not, there are a lot of colliders that are interfering with your ability to navigate, right? So I'm going to hit P to turn off my nav mesh visualization, and I'm going to click on this show button, and I'm just going to check this collision box so we can see where those colliders are. And you can see our scene is just completely packed with these colliders. And if I select this car, we can see that this car has a collider that stretches between it and this other car, and they're sort of brought in as a pair. And whether it was done in Unreal or in the original model, somebody put a collider that just kind of puts shrink wrap around both of them. And so now in between these two cars, there is also a collision, so a character couldn't like walk through that space, right? So for one, if you wanted to import, so I'm just going to import this again, but I'm not going to complete the import. I just want to show you the dialogue. But if we click on the scene and select import, right, before you import anything, you get this dialog box. And if you scroll down in collision, you'll see that this box is going to be checked, and you'll be importing all of the collisions, and it'll be creating what you see here, one convex hull per UCX. You can actually uncheck this, and it might put just a hull around each object. But I generally would advise to just not import collisions at all and control your colliders separately, right? So if there are no collisions on these assets, you might need to add collisions so that you can ensure that it works, right? And then once you uncheck this box, you can hit import, and you shouldn't see all of those colliders, right? But I'm not going to do that since I already imported this, and I don't want to change my scene around too much, and I don't want to have to like redo some of those changes. What I can do to get rid of those collisions is to go into my original asset, and I'm going to enlarge this here. I can go into all of these static meshes, and I'm going to hold down shift, and I'm just going to highlight all of the static meshes that are in question. And some of these I've deleted from my scene, but I'm just going to go ahead and select everything that's in the scene or in my folder that I imported, and select all of these static meshes. And I'm just going to get rid of the collisions. And this is kind of a tedious process, but this will solve that issue that I'm having. So again, select all of your static meshes, and we're going to go into each one and just delete the collider, right? If I had the wherewithal to not import it with the collisions, it would have made my life a lot easier. But sometimes you want collisions and sometimes you don't. And in this case, I definitely don't want these collisions. So let's go ahead and continue to select all of these. There's a few more, and I think I have them. And now with them all selected, I'm going to right click, and I should be able to click on edit, and let's give it a minute. It's going to open up all of these assets at once. So here they are, all of my assets opened up at once, and you can see these are all individual tabs. And I'm going to go in here and go to collision, and I'm going to hit remove collision. I'm going to hit save. Let's see if we can open this up a little bit more. Just close that one. Right. I can also click down here, remove collision, save, right click, close, right? So I got to do this for all of these. And so I'm not going to have you watch me do all that. I'm just going to go ahead and do it and I'm going to come back. Okay. I'm not going to lie to you. That was not fun, but didn't take that long. Just do it. I guess the other option would be to delete everything, re-import it, and place it back in the exact XYZ location, exact XYZ rotation position, and the exact XYZ scale if you change the scale of some of these assets. That would be the other way of doing it, but since I placed these and moved them around a little bit, I didn't want to try to replicate that. And so I think this is ultimately going to be a faster process. I have to do it for this other abandoned city asset that I created, but it's going to be far fewer assets, so it shouldn't be as difficult. I did look up how do you remove colliders on multiple assets at the same time. I wasn't finding anything that I was comfortable doing, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it this way, where I open each individual one and remove collision, save, and close. Remove collision, save, and close, right? So I'm going to go ahead and finish this up and come back and we'll move on to the next thing. Okay, so that wasn't as bad, but still not fun. But now that I've removed all of these collisions, you can see in my scene that we're just not going to deal with those issues any longer. Let me see if the collisions are on. Yeah, the collisions are on. So if we did want to add collisions to specific elements, we can go back in here and start adding them. But like I said, if these are grouped, a collider is going to kind of fill the in-between space with a collision volume as well, which is not something that we want, right? So I'm going to hit escape. I've got my player start behind my character. And I'm going to just test this out in VR just to make sure that I can teleport in the space. And I should already have collider set up in my original blockout geometry, which is this geometry in the street. If we're not 100% sure, if I hit P, we can see where the navigation mesh is visible. Okay, so I don't know why it's not shown over this part of the street. We can fix that later on if that poses to be a problem. But I just want to hit play real quick and make sure that I'm going to be able to navigate and see the way I want to. Spawned me in some weird location, so let's hit escape. Let's see, where's my player start? Is this my player start? Do I have a player start? I've got 2 player starts. I don't want that, so let's delete this one. And see if this works better. There we go. So now we're spawned behind our character. And now I can teleport. I'm actually teleporting. If you look at, or I guess maybe you can't tell, but if I look at the ring, it's actually placing me below the street level. So I might have used a different collider than the original line geometry started with. The one thing you'll notice is now I can spawn into vehicles and things like that. So I may want to put like a cube here to serve as a collision object and just not allow myself to visualize it so that the cube just serves as. Now I can kind of move all around my scene, and there's my robot character waiting to pop up. And I can also just explore my, at least part of my abandoned city, right? But I don't actually ever want the player to come past here. So I might start to place the no teleport um, objects around, but you can get a sense of what graffiti and what a wall looks like in terms of scale, in terms of detail. There's barbed wire. Um, and so, yeah, just explore your scene. Here's my manhole cover, which I might move to be a little bit more front and center and a little bit more visible. Um, but yeah, you can see how this is working. There are little elements that came in, like this little grass kind of thing, that I might delete because it's not really adding to my scene. And I've placed my own graph actors anyway. And so, yeah, I can at this point tweak things around. My voxelization is not showing, um, so our reporter is currently headless, but we can fix those things as well. In fact, if we play the animation, I do think the voxel should return. But I think we've resolved our teleportation problems, and so um, I'm gonna check that off as a win, and we'll start tweaking or continue to tweak our project to get things working the way we want. So let's get rid of this. If I can highlight it. If you can't highlight something, there should be a setting. Advanced settings, maybe. There should be a setting that allows me to select transparent objects. Doesn't appear to be here. Let me right click. Maybe my world settings. Sorry, I just don't remember where it is. And if you forget, there's always Google. UE5, select transparent objects. There is a quick answer for this. Under quick settings drop down, what's the quick settings drop down? Ah, over here. Allow translucent selection, and so now I can grab that. I know, pretty nitpicky, and so I can uncheck that afterwards. And so something like glass, you wouldn't be able to select unless you you had that box checked. But something to keep in mind. Otherwise, you'll have to figure out where it is in your outliner and select it that way. Let's go to my voxel effect and let's see if we can get this guy's head to appear. There it is. I just had to open the Niagara system, and it spawned the particles. The one thing I may want to do while this is open is to go ahead and increase the number of particles. Let's try 7,000. I just want to fill his head a little bit more. The alternative is I can keep it at a lower number and just increase the size of the particles themselves. And so maybe I'll try 2.5 just to give it more of that censored vibe. Right, so now it's just kind of more filled. Let's try 2.5. Okay, maybe that's good enough. Okay, so I mentioned wanting to add a camera shake to my camera. So let's do that next. What I might do is create a new folder. Let's see, voxel effect. Let me just create a new folder. Uh, this. I'm just gonna call it camera shake in case we end up using multiple camera shakes. I'm gonna do right click and create a blueprint class. And I'm going to unscroll the all classes and look for camera shake. There should be a camera shake base, right? I'm going to select that and I'm going to type in BP underscore can shake 01, and that might be my only one, but and I'm going to double click on that. I'm going to hit compile and save. I'm going to close it and reopen it, and I'm going to have a different interface, right? I can click on this and show that same interface where we have the event graph, but the camera shake base comes with, well, now how do I get back? View. Class settings. Let's hit save and close, and let's see if we can get back to that. I guess I can just adjust it from here, right? So here are settings. So what I did was I looked for my root shake pattern. It was originally set to none. I actually want Perlin noise because I just want kind of general shakiness. And you can see that we can effectively add noise to these primary elements, right? We can apply an amplitude and a frequency to the noise, right? It's just imagine general shakiness, but these are kind of waves that are operating on the X, Y, and Z axes for our transform, other than scale, so location and rotation only. And so I'm just going to leave the default settings, hit compile and save. And then I'm going to go to I guess I can just apply it to the camera. But I might want to apply it in sequencer. So let's go to our level sequence actor, and I'm going to select on the details, and I'm going to open my level sequence again. I'm going to not allow cinematic control on my right side and allow cinematic control on the left side. I'm just going to pop my grid open so I can see what's going on, and then I'm just going to select camera cuts. And so again, here's our scene, here's our actor, and the focus goes to our robot character, right? So this is exactly where we were, except for on my cine camera actor, I'm going to hit the plus, and let's see if we can add, here we go, camera shake. And I'm just going to add my camera shake to my cine camera actor. And here's my camera shake, And I can basically start this from 0 and stretch this out as far as I want to. So let's just stretch it out, excuse me, up to this point and hit play to see what it does. Oops. I'm going to undo that. And maybe I'm just not seeing enough of this effect. Let's stretch this out, hit play. And I'm not really seeing much movement. And so I'm going to go to my content browser again. I'm going to open this up and let's just pump this up a little bit and let's see if the thing is actually working, right? So rotation amplitude multiplier, let's just set these values to 3, 3. Oh, and my duration actually, let's go back here. I'm gonna set this back to 1, 1. I think this is at 0 and this is at 1. My problem actually was the duration. So this is saying it's only gonna last for a second. If I set this to 0, this means it's just gonna be indefinite. So I'm gonna hit compile and save. I'm just gonna dock this up here. And so let's go back to our sequencer. And so now you can actually see the camera shaking a little bit. So I'm going to hit play. And it's very subtle, but the camera is indeed shaking. And so what I can start to do is change the values of my camera shake. So let's try 3, 3, 1. Well, let's just try 3, 3, 3, and 3. Hit compile and save. Go back to main. Oh, so now you can see it's quite like this would be like the worst camera person in the world, right? This would be more like if he's like running down the street. And so let's keep this camera shake stretched out further. Let's hit play, right? So there's quite a lot of movement in that camera, and you can see how that camera is shaking to my right. So this is, you know, a little bit too chaotic, so I'm just going to tone that down. Let's set this to 1.5, 1.5, 1, and 1.5. Compile. Right, and this is still probably a little too much. And the smart way of going about this is to start with one effect at a time. Right, so let's just start with location. Right, so this is shifting in X, Y, and Z. And so there is a bit of subtle movement. Right, I want the shaking to increase when the zoom happens, just to simulate a cameraman just kind of fussing with their equipment. I'm going to go ahead and set this to 0 and 0, and let's try making these 1 and 1 just to see what the effect of that is, right? And so you can see already that the rotation is going to be much more severe. Right? And so we can reduce the rotation and increase the frequency, and what that should be is more of like a panicked stuttering, I think. It should just be a little bit shakier, but less rotation. right? And you can see the effects, right? So it's just a little bit shaky and randomly so, maybe a little too much, but you get the idea. So tweak these values accordingly, right? I might want to just have a subtle location. So location is just moving laterally up and down and side to side, or forward and backward, side to side and up and down. And rotation is obviously just rotating on like each axis. And I'm just going to set this to, let's just set this to 1. I'm going to hit compile. And let's just play this through again. See if we like this subtle movement, right? It just adds a little bit of something. You shouldn't really notice it until you want people to notice it, right? And so it should really start getting crazier this moment, right? So I can go to my camera shake, and I could, let's see if I can add some tracks to this. I can't. And so what I think I might do is take my camera shake at this point, stop it here, and I might create another one. So let's go to our content browser. I'm just going to duplicate this, and it's just going to automatically call it camera shake 2, right? And this is that same interface that I had, right? We can see our values are here. I'm just going to pump this up, rotation amplitude to 0.5, and rotation frequency to 2, 0.5 and 0.5. Let's just see what that does. And then I'm going to go back to my sequencer and I'm going to go back to this and add another camera shake to my camera. Here it is, camera shake, except I'm going to add camera shake 2. Where's my other camera shake? So, okay, here's our second camera shake. I'm just gonna, right, if I drag this across, and this might start to feel a little bit extreme, but let's go ahead and see what that looks like, right? So very subtle, normal movement, and then as we zoom in, there's just a little bit more. So maybe less movement and a little more shakiness. How about that? And so let's go to our camera shake 2. I want to 0.25, maybe I'll do 1.5. Actually, I'm just going to keep this 1.5, and it's really going to be just more the rotation that I'm going to be worried about. So let's try 3, and let's try 0.15. And this would just be a bit just general shakiness. Let's play that. So zoom, right? Pretty, oops, pretty subtle. Let's try 8. Let's just really pump it up and see what happens. Right? Does that make sense? I don't know. Play around with it yourselves and figure out what works for you. Maybe I'll reduce that, because this stuff could start to look pretty stupid quickly. So maybe the movement should be a little less even. So 0.05. So play, zoom. One, 7.5, right? But yeah, you could fiddle around with this for quite some time before you get it to a point where you're gonna like it. Maybe I want that to happen a little bit later too. Right? So play around with that, see if that helps or does not help. And then, play around with the values and use it as you see fit. Okay? So I think I'm good with my camera shake the way it is. It's not perfect and I can continue to tweak it. Um, but it's like a more erratic shifting and higher frequency, but like maybe less movement. Um, Whatever. You guys be the judge of these things. I think what I want to do next is, because she's just standing here, I'm gonna have her jump down and off uh, out of the scene, um, to imply her initial, like her initial attack, right? Um, I could also maybe add some characters climbing up behind her just to give that sense of a swarming feel, and I might add some other characters to that as well. But let's just focus on the little girl robot jumping down, and I might track the camera down to follow her. I'm gonna just play this for a second and see what the timing feels like. So zoom in, she's standing there, and like maybe now she should jump, right? I'm just gonna use my gut instinct to tell me what the proper pacing of this stuff should be. So roughly at frame 234, I'm gonna maybe add another animation to this Amy character, and so I can just open up her animations and let's see. Oh, sorry, this is that's the reporter. And so this is the climbing animation, and I just set this animation. So if I right click on this animation and go to properties, um, this area when finished just says keep state, which means when this animation is done, just keep her in the final frame position and don't do anything, right? I could also have this be restore state, um, which will restore. Let me just double check. I just want to explain the correct thing. I think project default has her go back to the beginning. I'm not sure what restore state is. Let's do restore state and let's see what that looks like, right? So she climbs up, right? Yeah, she goes back. Let's move over to Amy so we can see what she's doing. Yeah, she goes back into her T pose, right? She goes, climbs up, and then goes back into her T pose. I'm going to right click, go to properties again. I think project default is going to be the same thing. She's going to go up and then she goes back into T pose, right? And then if I right click, go to properties, when finished, keep state is just going to keep her in that final position, right? And so I want to continue with this animation of now Amy at, what did I say, 230, somewhere around here. I'm just going to jot that down, otherwise I'm going to forget. Let's say 235, frame 235. I'm going to have her begin her jumping down sequence, and I might have the camera animated to follow her, right? So let's pop back into Mixamo, right? And so now I have my Amy character selected from here. And then in my animations, I'm just looking for something related to jumping, right? So, this is her jumping backwards. This is her kind of jumping down. Maybe this is not menacing enough. Do I want her to jump up and then jump down? This is jumping down. This is jumping up. This is just jumping. So I'm just looking for an animation that's going to feel appropriate for this particular thing, right? So do I want her to raise her arms? This is kind of like a running jump. This is her grabbing on something and jumping down. This is her throwing her arms out, right? So there's quite a variety of different jumping animations that I could use. And I could also tweak this. So like maybe I kind of like this because she reaches down. Maybe she can reach down for the wall. Let's try increasing the overdrive. She just jumps faster, which actually might be good. And arm spacing doesn't lower her arms, so maybe that's not ideal, right? So I'm gonna just keep searching around for what feels right. This one's a little better. But she's already crouched from the beginning. There's quite a few jumping animations. This might be a good one, just very subtle. It looks like she's gripping her hand, but you probably can't really see it from. So I kind of like this one, so I'm going to download this one. Actually, before I do that, I might want to increase the speed ever so slightly. Just a subtle drop, but quick. Okay, so let's download that. I'm going to download this without skin because I already have a skeletal mesh that I'm going to use. It's this one. This one's kind of cool too. Jump length. So a little bit too fast. I guess this is just the distance. Kind of like this too. Okay, let's try this one. Again, without skin. I think that might have been one I already downloaded. Okay, And I'm going to look for her climbing animation again because I want to try something here. Yeah, I guess what I'm looking for is to see if I can have an animation where the root motion of the character um, follows the character. But I'm not seeing that. So let's just work with what we have. So we have a good climbing animation, and um, the issue that I'm trying to anticipate is um, that you can see from this view, the character's origin or the character's transform is actually still here, in spite of the fact that we're seeing the character appearing here. So what happens is if I were to add another animation, that animation is going to stop, or rather start from this position and not in her final position. So I can see if I can quickly just add a key that's going to place her like in one frame from this position and move her to this position, and that the next animation could start. Or I might just try to find an alternative solution. Essentially, what I'm trying to do is make sure that the appearance of the start of the next animation coincides with the position, or at least the final appearance of her position at the end of this animation. So I want her to jump from the wall as opposed to jumping from this point in midair. So let's go ahead and go to our character, and let's just bring those animations in to begin with, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and add, import, and then go to my downloads folder, and let's bring these two animations in, right? The skeleton I want this to work with is the climbing skeleton and the climbing skeleton for both, right? So now if we double click on her character, we can go to the animations, and you can see that she's got these animations, right? So this one looks pretty good. This one is a more subtle. I think I prefer this one because it looks like she's falling further, and she might fall out of the frame of the camera, which is what I want. And I guess we also have that run animation from before. So initially I was going to use the run, but I think I'm going to use this jumping animation instead. Okay, so let's close her out and go back to our sequencer. And I'm going to add another animation to this. So I'm going to add, oops, I added another keyframe. I actually want to add another animation, which is jumping. And you could see she already popped back to this spot, right? And so she's going to go and stay idle, and then she's going to appear in the wrong spot, right? I want her to appear up here. So match with this bone and next clip, right? So this is going to allow me to trace her bones. So I'm going to go into this jumping animation. I'm going to go and match, let's say her hip. I'm going to match the bone from this jumping animation to a particular bone in the animation from the previous clip. And let's see if that's going to allow for a more seamless transition without having to deal with um, moving her actual location. And so let's just go to the hip bone, right? It does do it, but she's still jumping, right? So let's undo that. And she's also turning, which I don't like. So let's try a different bone. So she was a little bit, let's try her foot. Let's try her, let's try her right foot. This is a little better, but she's still, so let's undo that. Guess let's try her head. See if that's any better. She still kind of drops. I'm just gonna, for, does make a difference. Right. I don't know why this jumping is happening. So let's see. Maybe I can add all three. This is a little bit better. I do kind of want her to jump the other way. So I might mirror this and download this again. Oh wait, this is a climbing. I want this, the jumping down. What was it called? It's just the jumping. Yeah, so we had this much longer and a little bit faster. And mirror this. So one thing I could do is set a key here, and at this position I can set another key, except raise her up. Oops. No, 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 no. Wrong character. So here I can set a location key, and then here I can set another location key. Just raise her up ever so slightly. Something like that. That looks okay. I want her to fall farther down. So what I might do is now set another key here. Um, here. just be much lower, but this, I don't know why this isn't. Oh, maybe this is the, yes. For some reason, just moving, I just set auto key and like physically moved her, and this seems to be working better. I don't know why. Let's go through the sequence. So there she goes, climbs up, zooms in, and then she drops down. Okay, I think that's where I want it to be. And maybe at this point, I can add some other characters climbing up over here, and maybe even this little gap. And they're also jumping over as well. So let's look for some more characters. I'm not going to show this part just because it's going to be a repetition of the earlier part. And so I'll show you after I'm done. So I want to control what assets or what characters appear a little bit better in my sequence. And so I want to talk a little bit about spawnable versus possessable, mainly spawnable. So in my, sorry, wrong button. So in my scene, I have my three characters, right? These are actually, I guess I haven't shown this yet, but I have three characters that are going to climb up, right? Three sort of childlike robot creatures or characters. But I only want them to appear at the point of action. So if we look at the Amy character, she jumps down and then she disappears because I don't need her anymore after she goes through the sequence. And if we go to the beginning, right? So let's get our view, right? So before a certain point, she doesn't appear, right? And the way we do that is by making these characters spawnable. And so she doesn't actually exist in the scene until she is actually performing her routine. And before and after, she just no longer exists, right? And so I'm going to do this with my other characters. And so let's go back and play our sequence. And we're looking at the left now. We can see that Amy spawns. She's in the scene, she jumps, and then she disappears, right? And then I have my other two characters also climbing climbing the wall and doing more or less the same thing. The idea being this is an invasion of multiple robots. But you can see in my scene here that this character is actually visible. I don't know why. This does not seem to be working. Let's hit play. This character is slightly visible in my scene until the action begins, right? And so I want these characters only to appear when they're needed in short. So let's go ahead and make each one of these spawnable. So I'm going to right click, convert to spawnable, right? Same with the Michelle character, convert to spawnable. And I'm going to key when I want these characters to spawn, right? So let's go to climbing 2, which is this child character. And I'm just going to uncheck this box. Sorry, I'm in the wrong character. I'm going to uncheck this box because this character is not by default spawned. And I want to create a key here and then check this box. Let's undo that for a moment. I'm going to set my auto key and then I'm going to check this box. Why? So by default, I don't want this character to be spawned. So let's just go to the 0 frame. And I'm going to create a key. And then I'm going to go to the point where I do want this character to be spawned, which is somewhere around here. And then I'm going to check this box, which sets a key. And I'm just going to move this key out a little bit. And so the character spawns at that point, and we're also going to check, or rather uncheck, and create a key there. And uncheck. Right, so the character only appears at this point where the action begins, climbs up, jumps down, and then disappears. Right, so off, on, and off. And I'm going to do the same with this Michelle character as well. So let's go back. Right. And set a key. Set another key. Turn her off after this point. In this case, I don't care that she's on in the beginning. I just want her to be off at the end. Right, so now all my characters disappear so that when I'm playing the game, I'm not going to see them. Right, and I might do this for the reporter as well. Right, and let's go ahead and unshow my collisions. Okay, and so now let's go back and just play this through, make sure nothing strange happened. Let's play this through from the beginning. I'm going to turn off my auto keys. And so characters talking, talking, talking. out of the corner of the camera person's eye, you see these characters, and I also made their eyes glow similarly so we can tell that they're evil, right? But we could see that they disappeared, right? And so you may want to do this so you don't end up with like T-pose characters or just extraneous characters that are in the scene, right? And so at this point, what I'm going to want to do with my camera, and I'll wait until that character disappears. In fact, I might just move this disappearing key a little bit sooner because I don't really need to see. So as soon as it jumps down, I'm going to want to animate my camera to zoom back out again. Right, so let's open up our camera component. Current focal length. So let's set a key here. And let's zoom back out to roughly where we were. We were at 35. And I'm also going to want to move the camera. So let's go to the camera's transform. This is actually a rotation. So I'm going to go ahead and set a key for the rotation. And I'm also going to rotate this down, which is the pitch. Just going to gently roll this back down. Right? But I might not want my character visible. I'm going to change my pitch to move further back. Right? And at this point, I want the first character to be sort of in mid-attack. So let's play this through. Right? So I'm going to have this character also be set to spawnable. And somewhere at this point, I can set a key and I guess I'm going to auto key that. Let's undo an auto key, and on this side I want it to be spawned. Well, it doesn't really matter. So when it's green, he's on. When it's red, he's off, right? So when I zoom out, I don't want to see the cameraman in the scene, right? I just want the robot child to be front and center. And maybe it's scarier if she's blurred, right? So I actually need another instance of this child character. So I'm going to go back to my child character, and I'm going to bring her in here. And I'm going to start blocking out her position. Right? I want her to fill the frame quite a bit because this is sort of like an attack position, right? So basically at this point. So what I'm gonna need is another animation. So let's go back to my Mixamo. I'm gonna select my Amy character. Let's go back to page 1. Use Amy. Let's hit refresh. So here's my Amy character. I'm going to go to animations, and I'm going to do jump attack, and let's see if something. Like that. Maybe that's good. I'm going to try this without skin because I have a skeletal mesh. I don't need a weapon. I mean, I'm assuming she's just using her fists. Let's just try attack. Okay, I think that first one is fine. Let's go back and add that animation. So I'm going to import downloads, standing, melee, run and jump attack. And it should select the proper child. I don't know how it recognizes it, but it does. And so now here's this Amy character, right? So I'm using a completely different skeletal mesh for this, but it doesn't matter. It's gonna, in theory, be seamless. I'm gonna go ahead and let's close some of this stuff up so we can see what's going on. I'm gonna add a track here. I'm gonna add this character, so I'm gonna click on that, add actor to sequence, add child climbing. Right. I might just rename this. I should have been naming these better. Let's call this attack. Right. And I also want this to be spawnable. So convert to spawnable. And then I'm going to add the animation. Right. And just move her back, move her over. Might want her right in our face. Right. So I'm going to lower her position. Feet to intersect the ground. Roughly there. Right, I'm gonna place a key. And then I might need a run animation. She should still be running at this point. And I might want her to be closer. And higher up. Right, so zooming out, she's already getting this. We should just move all of this back. So she's already there. All right, so let's play this out. Kids jump, zooming out, and she's already got us. Okay, nice. Let's go back and adjust her location. It's nice. Happy bunny rabbit. And at this point, the camera is going to follow. So she needs to spawn here. And after this point, I can unspawn her. And at the very beginning. Oops. Oops. Here she comes. So maybe I'll back that up so we can see her eyes. Right, and at this point I might have a much scarier camera shake as well. So let's look at the camera actor. When does a scary camera shake start? Maybe at this point here. So this camera shake, I'm going to back off here. Go back to my content browser. Go to my camera shake. I'm going to duplicate this again. Let's call it camera shake 3. And now let's call this 1. Let's up this to 12. Let's try 3. Let's try 2 and 4. Go back to our sequencer. I'm going to add the new camera shake. I might add some random rotation, or add some rotation rather to the camera. Transform. Let's go to rotation. So at this point, let's just set the auto key. Roll down a little bit. Where's my camera? So at this point, I'm going to do this. Oh, wait. All of this is set for from there to about here. Let's roll down my pitch a little bit. So erratic movement is what I'm going for here. Something like that, and then the camera's going to fall. Okay, so now what I want to do with the camera is, let's see if we can add something else to this camera. I don't want a camera component. So what I want this camera to have is physics. And let's see if we can figure out how to do that. All right, but I do want to, let's play this scene through one more time and make sure everything else is working the way we want. Let's go to the beginning and hit play. So reporter talking. There come our robots climbing over the wall. zooming back out, and then that's looking okay. So I'm going to save that. Save my scene. So the next thing I'm going to do is have the camera fall, and that'll be the end of my sequence. And then I'm going to have um, in the VR scene, maybe the camera lying on the ground, and the player could pick it up. And if the player puts the camera up to their eye, they'll be able to watch that footage. And so what that's going to show us how to do is use a grabbable actor and add some kind of a collision to it. So if I pull the camera up to my face, I might have a collider on my head, my VR head that is, and a collider on the camera. And when those two things intersect, I'm going to cause the sequence to play. Or I can also have a video play on the camera itself. All right, so let's look at both of those options next and see which one is better.